So my name's Stephen Reynolds. I'm the Managing Director of Microfitness, and Microfitness is a multi-award-winning fitness company. We deliver fitness experiences to schools, organisations, nurseries and daycares across most of Scotland, and we're also looking now to expand south the border into England as well. So customer engagement, I would say, involves two main areas. One is the customer acquisition side of stuff, and the other is customer service, the general customer service that you give as a company. From customer acquisition is massively important because obviously that's what feeds the sales of the company, and a lot of emphasis will be paid into that from a starting company. So you want to get your materials right, and one of the most important things I think in communication, whether it's on your materials or whether you're handling emails, is the language that you're using. So for us, we spend a lot of time training our staff that are dealing in this area with the type of language to use, because there's so many options available to you. Do you want to be very formal in your approach, and Mr. and Mrs. and Sir, or do you want to be really casual? Or our approach is trying to find a happy balance between the two. We want to sort of be their friend but in a professional context, and with that in mind we tend to use first names in emails to try and break down the professional barriers there, because we want the sale to be quite relaxed. So our staff are trained quite a bit on that side of stuff. In terms of the customer service, that's hugely important. You need to follow through. If the customer inquires and goes on to eventually purchase your product or service, then how you handle that from there on out is essential, whether the customer is going to come back or not. So you need to know that everything you're doing is right for the customer, and put yourself, as cliched as it is, put yourself in the customer's position. Would you be happy with that service that you've received? And if you are happy, I would ask you to say or question yourself, is it enough? Is that enough to be happy? Do you want the customer to be ecstatic? And that really is going to make the difference in terms of customer loyalty in the future. So with customer acquisition, we focus on a number of campaigns. We've got our mail, we've got our email, and we've got social media, and we maximise those resources as effectively as we can by using them to get to different markets, to get to different people. Not one single campaign will work to reach everybody. So we try to play around with those variables as much as we can. With customer service, our strategy is really very simple, and it is just to do a ridiculously excellent job. It couldn't be easier. The staff know the importance of customer service. They know how upset I can get when they don't deliver on that. And every customer, if they're coming into the centre and through the door, they need to be greeted warmly and dealt with effectively. They need to be listening to what they're saying, and if they haven't resolved an issue, it's getting passed on, some form of action is getting taken. Or if we're mobile and we're out delivering the experience, that's followed through with feedback, and we can assess how well it's been received. If the staff attitude gets marked as well, the customer's feedback on that. So we monitor as much as we can from a customer service, and if something hasn't been delivered the way that it should have, then the staff are brought in and we learn about it as a team, and that's the way that we tend to move forward. So looking at multiple platforms, I would say it's important to at least consider all the options available to you. However, what you do need to be careful of is you don't spread yourself too thin. If you are operating multiple platforms, you need to be able to manage them and sustain them effectively, and you also need to have a budget for them as well. So it's all very well operating across multiple platforms, but if you don't have a budget to carry them out effectively, then you're not doing yourself any favours. So I think looking at the costs of customer engagement, you do need to assess and understand what you can expect as a return from your investment. Absolutely important. So for us, we know that running a mailing campaign yields quite a high result, so we will spend quite a bit on that because we know it drives up the sales. So for us, we'll spend a bit on the design of the materials. We'll spend a bit obviously on the postage of it, and we'll try and reach as many as we can. So we'll spend quite a bit on that. Other areas we've tested and tried, and maybe haven't worked as much. So maybe we've spent quite a lot on emailing customers just to see how that's worked. It's not been so successful, so we won't spend as much on that area in future. Social media as well. There's so many variables you can play around with there, and if you've got a big budget to work with, then fantastic. But even still, you need to understand, again, who you're trying to reach, what you're trying to achieve in order to maximise your budget. So definitely when looking at a particular strategy, we will assign a cost and how much it's going to cost us to run a particular campaign, but we'll also look at what we can expect to get back from that. And what's also important to analyse is if it doesn't go to plan, the reasons why. If something hasn't worked, then understand the reasons why. And if you can do that, then it will obviously help you in the future when you're running a campaign or deciding whether to or whether not to. Yeah, I think without a doubt, the more personal you can make your communication to some degree, the better. And I say some degree because I think cold calling, is very, very difficult, and I don't know if that would yield a high result. Obviously, it depends on your product or service. But emails in particular, the great thing about it is it's obviously very low cost. If you can send them from your own email free of charge, one by one if you want. Or you can even sign up to other organisations that offer you bulk emails and you can manage the data and so on, which we do. And again, in terms of cost, it's relatively low. So it's a cheap way to reach your market. However, in terms of effectiveness, we do find that it's not that great. If we send out 1,000 emails, we'll maybe look to get 10%. If we get 10% of them opening, great. If you get 1% of the full amount inquiring, that's probably a success. So it's not an easy way to reach customers. However, it's because it is quite low cost, it's probably still worthwhile at least considering. What we don't have is a particular date where we will look at what has worked, what hasn't worked, and what will change. We don't have a specific time where we will say, right, this will be a review period. What we do is manage it on a sort of campaign to campaign basis, so it's very, very frequent as such. But again, it comes back to an earlier point that I'd said earlier of understanding why something hasn't worked. So again, business is just variables that you're playing around with to get a desired outcome. And for example, I'd mentioned before, our mailing campaign that we run in February every year is always successful, always great. And a good example is we thought, well, because of the results, because it's so successful and it drives forward the sales, well, if we run it again, then logic will dictate we'll get the same result. And that's exactly what we did. We ran it in September one year, and it was an absolute disaster. The materials were great. It went out once the schools were shortly back again, and we just didn't get the results that we were looking for at all. And we were astonished because we always knew it was a successful approach. So again, when you sit back and analyse, you can't therefore say we'll never use mail again because clearly it doesn't work. That's not the case. You need to look at why this time it hasn't worked, assess the variables, see what you can change and see what you'll do differently. I think a key indicator for us is certainly if we run a campaign, without a doubt, obviously the number of inquiries we're maybe getting back. If the campaign's focused on acquiring new customers, then the number of responses you get would be a key indicator. For existing customers, we very much target their feedback from a particular experience. We need to know we're delivering a good job. So every time we do a job, they're sent a feedback link to complete. They're even given credit for doing that as well, and it's normally a fairly substantial amount. So customers are rewarded and encouraged to give that feedback, positive or negative. And for us, we use that as a key indicator to make decisions in the future. Yeah, I would say number one would be to identify who you're actually looking to target. The second one would be understand what they're all about, have as much information on that market or customer as possible, and 3 is do it as effectively as you possibly can. Okay, so I think a perfect engagement with a customer would certainly be sending out some sort of material, whether it's via social media, an email or mail, or a phone call, and having that customer inquire relatively quickly. That's you off to the perfect start. From there, you're wanting your communication to be quick and effective, so that the customer's getting, again, a good level of service. You don't want them waiting 48 hours for a reply. In this day and age, that's not really good enough. So nice and quick responses, and hopefully, obviously, they'll get back in touch quite quickly as well. And obviously, the less communication it takes to get the booking, then the perfect the sale is, I suppose. But what is important is, of course, the level of aftercare, and I think in Britain that's something where we really fall down on. A lot of companies, like to praise that they're great with customer service, and they've won this award and won that award. But what you find is, after they've got the sale, the after sales maybe isn't as good. And I think that is a key area, if you focus on, will really determine the loyalty of a customer, because our expectations in the UK are quite low. So when we do receive it or we do get it, we're overwhelmed by it, and we remember it. There's 2 or 3 instances I can remember off the top of my head where I know I've had exceptional, surprising level of customer service by calling a company in the UK, and it's taken me back. And I've not done anything extraordinary, but they've just been very polite, professional, and actually listened to what I'm saying and dealt with it swiftly. And it's just been very noticeable for me. So I think after sales, going back to that point, is paramount, and especially if they haven't had a good experience and you are to blame for that, whether your product or service was sent out incorrectly or it was late, whatever it was. If you are at fault, deal with it effectively. Don't let it go. And I would say the most important thing is, if you contact a customer before they contact you, they will be blown away. If you're going to offer them some form of credit before they even have to complain, they will be overwhelmed. And for us, that's the approach we always take.